Okay, hello everyone, and welcome back to World of Tanks Blitz. I'm ill, but that's beside the point. I'm going to basically talk about what I think of the new equipment. Well, I say new equipment, I actually mean the supposedly revised equipment, which they added in update, what is it? I can't remember, 3.8. Is it? I think it is. I think it's update. Yeah, update 3.8. Yeah, there you go. So new equipment system. So yeah, basically the new equipment system is that you no longer only have to choose between 3 different equipment. You can now have up to 9 different pieces of equipment on your tank, and you may be thinking, great, that sounds great. I'll be able to have so many things, and I can make my, for example, E25 shoot 1 round every second. Unfortunately, no. That's not quite how they've done it, unfortunately. And you'll get people will most likely ask, what do you think of the new Blitz equipment system? And honestly, in my opinion, I don't really like it. It's made me ill, as you can tell now. It wasn't that made me ill, but sorry. So yeah, what they've done is, okay, take a look at this. Where do I have one which is mostly unlocked? I think maybe the mouse. Yeah, there you go. So take the mouse, for example, okay? Autoloaders are slightly different, but they've got 3 different sort of trees that you can go down, and they've got various tiers 1, 2, and 3. So, first up, you can't mount a gun rammer plus improved ventilation. As you can tell, the mouse does not have an option to mount improved ventilation on the tank. However, if I had something like an autoloader, for example, down at tier 2, the D1, that does not have a gun rammer, that instead has improved ventilation, which gives +5 to all crew skills. So you can't mount improved vents and gun rammer, which means that your guns, such as the 128, the 152 howitzers, for example, the 122 guns, or indeed the 120s, like the T-34's 120mm gun. That just means these things are just going to be firing slower. And that's a pretty big disadvantage. Plus, say for example, on my mouse, I had, I think, gun rammer, improved ventilation, and a vertical stabilizer. Okay, so I was firing a shot every 11 seconds, plus I had vertical stabilizer. Another example, the IS-2. The IS-2, I had a gun rammer, improved vents, and a gun lane drive. So I had these things maxed out with sort of like over 1,000, over a million, no, what is it? 500,000, yeah, over 1,500,000, yeah. So lots of these things had 1,500,000 credits or more of equipment on. For example, the IS-2, each of those pieces of equipment costed, I can't see, but each of these pieces of equipment costed, let's call them 500,000 each. That's 1,500,000 credits. I could buy a tier 7 tank with the amount of credits that I spent on equipment for just this tank alone. For example, there you go. SU-100M1 costs 1.365 million credits. So I could buy a tier 7 tank for the amount of equipment I spent on just a single tank. On just a single tank. And when they revised the equipment, they got rid of all of that. They didn't compensate you. Well, I suppose they did sort of compensate you. They compensated you with these things, spare parts, which I'll move on to a little bit later, which is how you actually unlock these extra rows. But basically, lots of those equipment were just turned into spare parts. However, you didn't get enough spare parts back in order to fully max out all of your tanks. If you had all 3 equipment slots filled before the update, you would have the first tier completely unlocked. However, for example, where's something I only mounted 2 on, I think? One of these, surely. There we go. Well, actually, no. That's my new tank. Tier 5, tier 5. There you go. For example, the Churchill 1. All I had on the Churchill 1 was a gun rammer and improved vents. And so I only had these first 2 unlocked. The third one, I actually have to spend 80,000 credits to actually unlock it, which means I'm just spending more credits on unlocking equipment slots which I would have had in the first place. So, okay, you got spare parts, but not enough of them to completely deck out your vehicles as they once were. What next? Well, you couldn't have improved, you couldn't have your gun rammer for, if you wanted something else in combat power. So, for example, Tier 1 have got the basic things. You've got either a choice of gun rammer or calibrated shells, plus 5% to penetration with any type of shell, which means that my mouse can actually have 258 penetration. Then you've got Vitality, which has got protected modules, 10% to protection of the engine, transmission and ammo rack, and 10% to suspension and fuel tank durability. Or you've got Enhanced Cabin, plus 10% to the crew protection, minus 10% to damage from ramming. Then you've got Improved Optics, which is just coated optics. And then you've got the Camonet, minus 3 to visibility when vehicle is moving, and minus 6 if you're stationary for more than 3 seconds. So, Camonet. So you've basically got Camonet or improved or coated optics. That's what you've got with these 2 things. However, sorry about that. However, Camonet doesn't really help a big thing like the mouse, and coated optics. Alright, why the hell not? But why would you really bother unlocking it when you don't really need it? Vitality, for example. This is pretty good. 10% to protection of engine, transmission, and ammo rack, and 10% to suspension and fuel tank durability. That's pretty good. 10% to crew protection. Why would you go for that over protected modules? You'll notice that basically none of my tanks have actually got that installed. For example, this is the protected modules, the first line here, and then Enhanced Cabin is the second line. So, yeah, lines there, on the left, 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 and on the left. I have not mounted Improved Cabin on anything at all. Maybe it would work on the KV5 because you're going to ram things in a KV5 because that's what it's all about. But something like the mouse, no. You really want to get the better protection for this thing. So yeah, okay, everyone's going to be mounting that. Combat power, this thing is pretty useless unless you've got something which has got a lot of penetration to begin with. For example, the mouse, which gets plus 12 extra penetration. Alright, that's pretty good. But what about something like, oh, I don't know, the T7 combat car? T7 combat car has got a gun which has got 27 penetration with armor piercing. If I go with, see, because it's an autoloader, improved vents instead of gun rammer, but if I go for the calibrated shells, I get 1 extra penetration. 1 extra penetration is going to do nothing for my T7 combat car, which means that that is useless on anything smaller than basically, I don't know, 90, maybe 100 millimeters. For example, the 75 on the Panzer 5/4. With the calibrated shells, it gets 115 penetration, which is, alright, granted, slightly more. But it still doesn't make that much of a difference over a gun rammer. And all you've really done is just made everyone fire slower. That's all that's really happened. People are just spending more time reloading before they can shoot again. That's especially problematic on things that have got long reloads, such as the 120mm on the M6A2E1, the 120 on the T34, the 122 on the IS2SH. Things like this, which already had a long reload to begin with, have now just got an even longer reload than is necessary. For example, this thing has got a 13-second reload now. Over 13-second reload. It only fires 4.49 rounds a minute. It's just really slow to reload this thing now, because when you fire, you've got to sit for almost 15 seconds just to reload the gun. And that's problematic. So, okay, there's only really one choice of thing for combat power, which is a gun rammer, unless you've got anything bigger than 100mm, and it has already not quite enough penetration, such as the mouse, which had the lowest penetration of any of the tier 10 tanks, heavy tanks that is. So okay, unless you've got something like the mouse, which calibrated shells is an option, everyone's going to mount a gun rammer. Okay, vitality. No one's going to mount enhanced cabin, because this is just so much better. They're going to mount protected modules. Specialization, no one other than light tanks or tank destroyers, and even then, some people may just think, my tank's too big to really hide, I'm just going to go with coated optics. So everyone's just going to mount coated optics. The second rank, enhanced gun lane drive. Something like the mouse, which has got a 5-second aiming time, enhanced gun lane drive is a good idea. Something like the 122 on the IS-6, you're going to want an enhanced gun lane drive on. The other choice is supercharge, 10% to shell velocity and minus 30% to penetration decrease with distance. Would love to mount that, but I have to go with the gun lane drive in order to actually hit anything in the first place. So, okay, everyone's going to mount an enhanced gun lane drive unless they've got something which is fast to aim, such as none of my tier 7s, such as the T23-3, which has got a 3.6 second aim time. See, on this thing, I don't need the gun lane drive. I can go with shell velocity. Alright. Going back to the mouse, you've got a choice of either improved assembly for plus 5% to vehicle HP, or enhanced armor for plus 5% to hull and turret armor. Both of those are good, but you can only mount one of them. Which means that people are going to have to choose between these two, which is, alright, yeah, 5% to hull armor and turret armor, or 5% to vehicle HP. I mean, the stats don't actually change if you choose the 5% to hull armor and turret armor, but they do with the HP, because as you can see, my mouse has now got 2,625 HP, which is quite nice. But, yeah, so you have to choose between those two, which is pretty difficult, because I would like to have that, but then I like my mouse to have lots of HP. As for specialization, you've got improved control, 7% to traverse speed, or 7% to reaching top speed. Something like the mouse, which has got a low top speed anyway, you don't really need the engine accelerator. But it's got a low hull traverse speed, so you're going to go with improved control, which means that unless people have got something speedy, like a light tank, everyone's going to go with improved control. Combat power. Vertical stabilizer, 15% accuracy during movement and turret traverse, or refined gun, minus 5% to dispersion at 100 meters, minus 5% to dispersion of 100 meters. Something like the 122 on DIS2, that is going to come in useful-ish, but they're not really, because you would think that minus 5% to dispersion at 100 meters would do something better than 0.022%. Sorry, 0.022 dispersion. There's basically no point mounting it, because it only changes the dispersion to 0.41. because as you can see, this is still 0.441 dispersion. It's got a 0.44 dispersion, basically. Mount this thing, it gets a 0.41 dispersion. A decrease of 0.3. 0.03, actually. Which still is not that much of a difference. You're still going to be wildly inaccurate. Something like the Tiger. With the top 88mm, you get 0.32 accuracy, which is very good accuracy. Mount the refined gun, you get 0.31. You gain an increase of 0.01, which is basically nothing. You will not notice a thing. Which means that, unless you've got something drastic, like a Russian 122mm gun, or a howitzer, you're not going to notice much difference from the refined gun, which means that everyone's going to mount a vertical stabilizer. Oh, look at the next one, enhanced tracks. Automatic repair of suspension from a critical condition to a standard condition. Alright, so the tracks always instantly repair themselves. Or you've got toolbox, which is the standard 25% repair speed. So, alright, that's a decent choice. You can either have really good tracks, or you can have a really good repair speed for across the board. Both of which is decent enough. But again, you have to choose. Then you've got this, 10% to consumable cooldown speed, or 15% to duration of consumables, engine power boost, and adrenaline. So you can either have better regular consumable cooldown, or you can have better specialized consumables cooldown. And for someone like me, who doesn't often use high-end consumables, you're going to go with consumable delivery system. Which means that unless you're someone who likes to use your extra consumables like that, everyone else is going to mount consumable delivery system. Now, I have no idea why Wargaming decided to change the equipment layout of World of Tanks Blitz, and it's caused a bit of an outcry, probably more than a little bit of an outcry in the community, because lots of people were saying, we don't like this update. Can you change it back? There was absolutely nothing wrong with the old equipment. So what did they do? They went and implemented it anyway. And like I said, I have absolutely no idea why they changed the equipment layout. Maybe it was to stop people from mounting the age-old instant everyone would just mount gun rammer, improve ventilation, and if need be, gun laying drive. Or vertical stabilizer, the choice of the two. Those are probably the three most equipped pieces of equipment in the game. So maybe they thought, if we give them a choice of 9 equipment, which they can all unlock, maybe we'll have more diversity between the vehicles. Maybe people won't just mount the same equipment over and over again. Let's just take a brief look back at my tier 5s, shall we? Left green, probably left green, left, 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 left. You get the idea. Nothing has changed. All they've done is made the tanks reload slower, aim slower, and made a big schism in the community. And probably driven away lots of potential buyers. Many people in my clan have actually refunded some of their purchases because they just do not like how they've changed the equipment layout. And so, alright, Wargaming didn't want people to mount the same equipment over and over again. But guess what people are going to do with this new equipment? Mount the same equipment. Unless it's something such as the mouse, in which case you'll have to choose between these two. You may mount either improved assembly or you may mount enhanced armor, because obviously the greater the number, the greater the percentage you'll get. So what, 5% of 200, which is the frontal hull armor, you'd get an extra, you'd gain the frontal hull armor up to 210mm, which is more decent. The turret armor, you'd gain an extra 12 onto that, so you'd gain 252mm of frontal turret armor, which is again, pretty good. The side armor as well, you would gain an extra 11. So you would get 221 side armor, which is decent armor. But you have to choose between the enhanced armor or the improved assembly. What would make this update bearable with the equipment is if you could sacrifice something like a specialization for another one of these things. So instead of being limited to your choice of 2, you would be limited to a choice of 9 equipment. So you can mount, you have to mount up to 9 equipment. But if you could choose what 9 equipment you had instead of having to choose between 2 on either slot, that would make it better. Because I would gladly sacrifice my specialization of improved optics and in fact consumable delivery system in order to get a gun rammer and the enhanced armor on my mouse. I would gladly get rid of this one and this one so that I could still mount the 9 equipment that I wanted and have the 9 equipment that I actually wanted to choose rather than what they've given me here. Because a lot of this equipment, many people will just write off as not being needed. For example, I would write off these things. That thing can go. I literally do not care about coated optics. Coated optics was always something that I just chucked on because I was like, I have a spare slot, why not fill it? And I would gladly get rid of them and them in order to get that and that on my mouse, so I could have the improved penetration, plus still keep my reload, have more HP and better armor. I mean, my consumables wouldn't allow to be used as often, and I would lose some view range, but I would be happy to do that in order to get rid of those things. And the point being here is that nothing has changed at all. People are still going to mount the same equipment every time on every tank. Unless, for example, it's something like the E25, in which case you'll just sort of mount all the things that will get your reload down. For example, I've gone with apparently enhanced cannon, but no, protective modules, and I've gone improved assembly because the armor's crap anyway, so extra 5% of the armor of this thing is not really going to make that much of a difference. So, you know, there's obvious choices there, but I mean, something like the IS-2, I would like to have that, and you know, that may not be such a bad idea either, and I would happily once again get rid of that and that. So if we had, you know, say up here you had equipment left 8, for example, or in fact equipment used, and then you would have like 3 out of 9 written up there, and then you could choose sort of like that sort of thing, that would be acceptable. I wouldn't mind that. If you didn't have to choose one of each of these things, I could even get rid of the toolbox or the enhanced tracks and, you know, have this whole thing cut out of stone. I would happily do that. But unfortunately, no, you can't do that because Wargaming has limited you to having to choose one of the 2 available things in that slot. You can't just pick and choose your equipment, which is what you could do with the old equipment layout, which I had no problems with in the first place, as did a lot of people. I have no idea what singular complaint Wargaming looked at and just went, that one person has complained about the equipment. Let's change it because of this one person. No. I have no idea what brought this. Oh, I'm dying because of this something. No. Yeah. I have absolutely no idea what caused this. But it's done nothing useful to the game. It's brought nothing useful or good to the game by redesigning the equipment. Yeah, sure, it's cool to have 9 equipment, but half of it's equipment that you literally care nothing about. Mostly, people will care about combat power and vitality. Specialization, nobody will probably really care about. I mean, you know, who really cares about equipment, about consumable cooldown? Once it's cooled down, it's cooled down. When you need to use it, you use it. No one's sitting there and just thinking, oh, wish my equipment would cool down 10% faster. And And there's a way of bypassing that if you just use boosters. If you just use boosters, you can increase your consumable cooldown by 10% anyway by getting a couple of big boosters. Which automatically, you could even get it cooled down better by using the special boosters, of which I, for some reason, have 50 of. I mean, they're literally throwing them at you in these missions. Look, there we go. 3 XP boosters, 6 of them. Right there and then. I mean, they're literally throwing boosters at you. So why they decided to give you even more consumable cooldown when you could get them from, you know, opening crates if there's crates about, or by just completing the missions that they give you. But I'm just bamboozled by why they changed the equipment. But anyway, I think that's me done. Just why? Just why? They've driven away lots of people, and I have no idea why. I mean, there's uproar in the clan. Sort of like nobody likes this redesign equipment update, and yeah. Anyway, I've rambled on. That's my say on the equipment loadout. I really do not like it. Maybe people were just like, oh, they've mounted improved vents and, you know, gun rammer and their reload so much quicker than mine. Well, hey, guess what? Mount it yourself. That's the easy way of getting around it. You don't have to spend gold unless you really want it in order to buy more credits, but I literally do not know. But I'll thank you for watching, and goodbye.